And what I would like to do here, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9. Everything but 8. I would make a motion that we approve with tabling number 8 to go to committee.
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is just a pet peeve. We've talked to some of these people and met on these issues of these. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to do anything that would impede kids from participating. What bothers me is when we start doing these co-op things, we're going to have schools that lose their sports identity. And if we and I don't know how you would get around that other than if everything became just generically labeled Hawkins County High School bowling team, rather than, because I don't know how to define competition, number of individual school, or which I know that's not an on-site thing, but some of these others, they're on. There's probably a particular site where they participate, like in wrestling. You've got Churchill, Sir Middle, and Volunteer High School. That's probably at volunteer. And then by the same token with Bulls Gap, ROGERSVILLE Middle, and Cherokee High School, it's probably done at Cherokee. So what is it called? Is it volunteer wrestling and Cherokee wrestling?
Well, for the example of swimming, it's Hawkins County Swim Team because we don't have a pool and they co-op, so they pull students from any participating schools in the co-op and then they practice at Kingsport, for example, at the YMCA or other facilities. So I do think, or the Churchill pool, wherever they can get in. So I think that it depends on the sport. Bowling, for example, none of our schools had bowling facilities, so that's a county-wide program as well, in addition to swimming. Wrestling, Mr. Glass, how does that work with team identity?
There's Churchill Middle School wrestling and there's Volunteer High School wrestling. And I think bowling's the same way. I think bowling's listed as Cherokee High School bowling.
I think it is too. And the volunteer students just come to Cherokee and wear Cherokee high school uniforms.
Yeah. So it depends on the sport. I mean, that's why I wanted to call out a couple of examples. It depends on the sport, and we look at approving these annually. The only thing I can tell you is that we do these annually because our hope is that each school farms its own team. Number of students to farm it, be able to supply its own team, but sometimes due to facility needs, or due to lack of turnout, or due to lack of finding coaches, any of those reasons or rationales are good reasons to co-op, and we're seeing surrounding counties do the same. Washington, for example, does middle school co-ops, and they're expanding that, my understanding, and several other systems do the same because they either have low student turnout for individual sports or lack of available coaches, and we're seeing both of those happen in the county. The high school, not so much, but leading up to the high school, unless it's a facility-related issue, there's not many co-ops.
And I want to add that 1, 2, 3, all but 8 have been historically approved, so that
correct. They're long-standing.
Yes, they're long-standing, but volleyball is new, and I think we need to take a closer look at it.
Wait just a second. Number 3B is baseball and softball, but co-op Churchill Middle and Seguinsville Middle.
Baseball, softball.
Doesn't that have to, would it be the same thing there?
How did that make it on? I move to strike.
We can table that.
Let's table that also, yes, please. That would be 3D.
What about soccer? Has that always been?
Yes.
That's been a historic co-op.
Yes.
The co-op's already been there, okay.
Appreciate that catch, indeed.
And I would put that in the form of a motion to approve with the exception of 3B and number 8.
I see.
We have a motion. We have a motion. We have a second with no further discussion.
I just got one last thing. that I think is key that Matt mentioned is one of the elements is participation. If we don't have participation at one school or another over a period of time, then virtually that sport goes away in that school.
With the co-op
Yeah,
program, that
yeah,
sport
it
would
would
go
just
away.
disappear.
Yes.
And then we know, we know historically that that has been a problem before. And so how do we know, how are we going to know going forward that the participation level at a particular school is not high enough to support that school if we don't have tryouts in every individual school?
That's a good point.
We do have, for most sports, we have signers, and we do surveys, and those are done largely in the classrooms, homeroom, prior to school, after school. Things are sent home. If you're interested in this sport, show up at this location, fill out this form, submit this documentation, and those are how we gauge participation or interest. We also, a lot of coaches will go school to school, classroom to classroom, and ask for raise of hands or students that we can get forms to. So we don't want to exclude, nor have we ever, to my knowledge, excluded willingly or without trying to get participation from students. Our athletic directors usually do a bulk of that. And
Well, there's one thing for sure. If you don't have a coach for a sport in a school, then you're definitely not gonna have no turnout.
But that's where the co-op comes into place, because without the co-op and without not having a coach on site, there is no opportunity for those students. But with the co-op, there is an additional opportunity for those students that want to participate. Even if they have to travel to another site within the system, there is an agreement that's board approved that allows for that to happen.
Except in a case where somebody might want to participate and couldn't get transportation.
Well, we have not seen that being an issue, and here's what typically happens. We have parents that wind up carpooling, and in some cases, we have allowed, if we have a trade-off on a bus stop, for example, buses that go from Segorensville to Churchill to pick up additional students, we have gotten parent permission to drop off at those locations so that parents at least just have to pick up after practice or after the game. So there are creative ways we can work within the system as long as parents are communicated with, and we've done all of those that I just mentioned.
Yeah, that's good. I understand bowling. I understand wrestling. I understand for Clint to come across the mountain to be a Cherokee. I understand golf. Soccer even, I understand. Swimming, I understand. But when I get back up to baseball and softball, like that is a co-op between Churchill Middle and Segorensville Middle, I am puzzled at the reason that we would combine those schools, because I know through the years, Segorensville's always had their football team, they've always had their softball team, girls softball and boys baseball, and that is a major activity for that area. And I'm pretty sure they had volleyball too. If we're saying, well, we don't have enough people, enough interest, then, I'd probably like to see those figures. Do we say we don't have a coach? If we have people hired in, I've coached things before and was a figure teacher, and it was part of my thing that I did. Well, it wasn't even a requirement, but I did fill out, or was gonna apply for a job one time, and it was for a history position at a high school, and part of my requirement was to coach, but it was a boys team, so, I knew that they wanted it, so I didn't push it any further, but, in our contract with our teachers, we're paid for that day's work, but we have responsibilities to the extracurricular activities. I have after school and whatever, and I know we pay supplements for these jobs. Now, you know, growing up in this area, Jackie played softball just like I played softball, and I've coached Little League, I coached the girls softball teams. You have too in the community, but I would assume as a teacher that somebody's going to coach these teams if we have people there. I don't want to take it away from, well, for this instance, it'd be Sigornsville. I don't want to take it away from Sigornsville because that's where people are interested. They want to go see their kid play on their field that they played when they were young. And it builds community relationships to have those activities at their own school. So, that's
What I
my
can tell you is that the schools listed and the programs listed had very low participation last year. Either on the coaching side through inconsistent coaching or on the student participation side. And that's why they're listed here. Now, I do support Mr. Christian pulling those new programs out just to make sure we have details in place, because I think that at times we can rush through some things and get careless in looking at the details, because our priority is if we can field the team and provide for the team through coaching, that community has a team. That's the priority. If not, our second priority is to make sure that we give an opportunity for students that wish to participate, that if not given a cooperative opportunity, would not have the chance to participate. So that's why the co-op is there. It's not an effort to shirk the ability of that community to have a team. It's not there to eliminate that community from having a team. It's to provide additional
I
options for
understand
the
that,
students.
and I'm sure other people would too. But if they don't know that this is happening, you know, I mean, this is like, I'm reading this for the first time. If parents do not know, or students do not know that, well, this is going to be taken away from you if you don't get enough participation to be in this, to have a team. And, you know, I mean, I have went around and begged kids to play ball at Kepler before in the summer. I've begged them to run track. And I am sure that they're, you know, I can't imagine that teachers would not want to help those kids to keep those activities at home. And we do have coaches up there, don't we? So, and PE teachers, you know, I'm sorry, I just think that's, you know, we closed Kepler and Peters Bend, we took that away from those communities. I just don't want to take something else from a larger community. And I'm pretty sure that people, once they find out, would be a little bit upset about this. I would.
I think that's, those are all good reasons to table it and take it to the athletic committee for further discussion. I'm not gonna argue with you because you raised good questions, and I don't like arguing with Ms.
I don't
Strickland.
either. Can I argue with you? It didn't sound like I was arguing with you.
No, we didn't.
I'm just kind of passionate about this.
I know,
I just
and
think this
that's
is.
why I support, the motion doesn't need my support, but I do support it. To
So-
table it and discuss in the athletic committee meeting.
So the motion was to approve all but 3B and number 8. And we have a motion, and we got a second?
It was Judy.
Yes.
It was Judy.
So with no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, the motion passes.